Yep. Yep. Is Richard Grace going to be the first one? Who's going to be the first commentator? Who's going to be it? Drum roll. So where'd you all go eat for lunch?
Next door, JD's.
Nice. What'd you have?
Burgers.
Just burgers? Yeah, the burgers are good. Burgers, I haven't had one in a while, but burgers are good. Oh, where's it? Donnie and Donna Houston. Yeah, that's fine. Watching the galaxies, it's like you're floating through space. That's pretty neat. Oh, looks like Explore Scientific. Howdy on this fine Friday. And Bob Bergengart. Very nice. This is Tyler with Explore Scientific. Tyler. It's funny how we're floating through galaxies, even though we're going to talk about galaxies today.
Serendipitous, I think not.
Hey, Billy, how you doing, sir? We got Josh Kovach, Jim Zastro, and Mr. Michael Wiesner. And of course, we mentioned Paul. How you guys doing today? It's Friday. Thank the Lord. It's finally clear.
Are you going to image this evening?
Yeah.
Are you?
Yeah, I might as well. Customer support questions. So my filter show.
Spell your name.
Who?
Just like the city, Houston. Donnie, Donnie, and Donna, Donna.
Hang on, Josh. I'm reading your question. So my filter show says it was delivered back today and would be a replacement today.
Donna, yeah.
Josh, we're going to get it out first thing Monday. We got Harold Locke, Billy Zastro, Miss Beatrice Hines. Hello, Photon Chasers. That'll work. Explore Scientific nailed it.
I'm Stefan Immler, an astrophysicist at NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center. I'd like to take you on a tour of two nearby galaxies in our cosmic neighborhood, the Large and Small Magellanic Clouds, as captured in ultraviolet light by NASA's SWIFT satellite. These images are the highest resolution wide field surveys of the galaxies at ultraviolet wavelength. Both of these galaxies are less than 200,000 light years away, and each contains a few 100 million stars like our Sun. If you live or travel to the southern hemisphere, you'll see both of these galaxies as faint cloudy patches in the night sky. Both galaxies orbit our own as well as each other. Of the two, the LMC is physically larger and nearer to us than the SMC. Their messy shapes are a product of gravitational interactions between them, tidal forces from the much bigger Milky Way, and internal processes like star formation. In visible light, we see a mix of sun-like stars, along with pink patches that mark star formation regions, where hydrogen gas is set aglow by the light of young stars. These are especially prominent in the LMC. Viewed at higher energies in the UV, the LMC looks very different. This wavelength blocks out the older stars, mostly showing those less than 500 million years old. These galaxies are relatively small, but they're also very close to us. This means they appear much larger than the field of view of Swift's telescope, so we had to take many different observations and stitch them together. Swift had to image 172 separate fields in 2,200 short snapshots to take in the whole galaxy. The LMC's most striking feature is the dramatic Tarantula Nebula. This is the most active star factory in any of the dozens of galaxies in the local group, which includes the Milky Way and Andromeda. Thousands of stars form each year within cool, dark molecular clouds. Once they start shining, they blow off their birth cloud with powerful outflows called stellar winds. These winds, in turn, sculpt the gases into the Tarantula Nebula's spider-like shape. One star here, named R136A1, is one of the most massive known, weighing more than 260 times the Sun. The LMC holds more than 1,000 star clusters formed during previous rounds of star formation. We mostly see hot, young, luminous stars, plus a few stars in exotic stages as they near stellar death. Wherever there are hot, young, and massive stars, there are also supernovae. In 1987, the closest stellar explosion in more than 400 years occurred in the outskirts of the Tarantula Nebula. Even 26 years later, the afterglow of the explosion remains detectable in the ultraviolet. All told, the new Swift mosaics reveal about 1 million objects in the LMC and about 250,000 objects in the smaller, less massive and more distant SMC. For this mosaic of the SMC, Swift imaged about 50 fields and took 656 snapshots. One interesting feature is the massive young star cluster NGC 346. It contains the SMC's brightest star, HD 5980, a triple star system where all members are among the most luminous stars known. The intense light and strong outflows from these stars mold the surrounding gas into a shape resembling a cobweb. The Swift UV mosaics allow us to study the evolution of young stars in the LMC and SMC all in one view. That's impossible for us to do for our own galaxy because we're inside it. The images give us a panoramic window into how stars are born, evolve and die across two complete galaxies. That gives us fresh insight into the many ways stars transform the universe into what we see around us today.
Well, hello everybody. It's Scott Roberts from Explore Scientific and the Explore Alliance. And today, Tyler Bowman has Donnie and Donna Houston, astrophotographers that live here in Northwest Arkansas. And they're in the studio with Tyler now, so we'll go over to them.
Hi, guys. Oh, got a little bit of echo. That's okay. We got Donnie and Donna here. They are local astronomers here in Northwest Arkansas, as Scott mentioned before. These guys are the most friendliest people ever, at least from the conversations I've had with them. I don't know how well they are with other people, though. But in case nobody knows who Donna and Donnie are, they are local Explore Scientific ambassadors. They do a lot of outreach for the community, but I'm going to let Donnie and Donna talk a little bit about what they do, just in case nobody knows, and then we'll get into the meat and potatoes of the episode.
Sounds good.
All righty?
Guys, thank you for taking the opportunity to join us today and sharing our passion, which is astrophotography, and the opportunity to gather those photons. And together with myself and Donna here, we make up ArcStar Astronomy, and we are, as Tyler had mentioned, we are ambassadors for Explore Scientific, and we take this very serious, and I love that you guys have taken the time to be with us today.
Of course.
Donna?
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here once again. It's been a little bit, but we've enjoyed it, and we've enjoyed the relationship that we're having with you guys.
Good. But today's meat and potatoes episode is about galaxies. Almost kind of like the video what we were watching, but it was more of the Southern Hemisphere stuff. But eventually I'll go down there, and hopefully you guys can go down there too, and we can actually take some pictures of the LMC and the small Magellanic Cloud, because Simon showed me pictures of those things. That thing's huge.
We've had that opportunity. We've traveled, her brother was a missionary in Venezuela, and we've had the opportunity to go down there and see the Southern Cross firsthand, and spend some time down there, sleeping in the back of a pickup truck, staring at the stars, and it's almost a religious experience. It's so incredible.
It's jealousy. Jealousy is what that is. But galaxy season. I like refractors. I know, how many telescopes do you have again?
11.
Why do you say that in shame? 11?
Well, just like many things, and you had mentioned golf as an analogy earlier, no one scope is a fit-all, so it's nice to have a whole lot of different scopes of different sizes to do different things. And we've got everything from an 80 millimeter refractor up to a 152 millimeter refractor, as well as the Edge HD 11, which you'll see back over our shoulder here. So we're no stranger to telescopes. We've been doing this over 30 years now, but no better time to get into this stuff than galaxy season, and we're on the cusp of galaxy season now, and there are plenty of things up there in the sky to see.
Good. Now, obviously you didn't do astrophotography 30 years ago.
No.
When did you start and want to jump into the deep end of astrophotography?
We've only been doing astrophotography for a little over a year now.
Yeah.
In earnest, we had taken pictures before on several occasions, but nothing as in-depth as we do now. Back in the 70s, we had guys doing some astrophotography that I was friends with, and had the opportunity to get into that some, but never actually owned a full astrophotography rig until, probably a year and a half ago. So
Yeah, give or take.
so that's where we are now, and Donna has jumped on board full scale with this thing. She enjoys photography of all sorts, and really got into the astrophotography end of it. So it was nice to bring her on board. And there's nothing like astrophotography or astronomy in general, but it's a lonely hobby at best. And if you've got a spouse or a good friend, and I have both of those sitting next to me, who enjoyed the same things,
forget your dog.
really nice to do that. So that's where we're at today, and we enjoy sharing those things with the community in our outreach program.
So, ultimate debate, refractor or SET for right now, for Galaxy?
You're going to make me jump one way or the other on this line. Honestly,
Even though you have both.
I've got both. So if I were going to pick, honestly, for myself and probably the public in general, it would be a refractor, just for ease of use, compatibility, and the opportunity to have a rugged telescope that you can throw around. So that's where we're at. Now, that being said, there's a lot of small galaxies out there. And that's the reason we purchased the Edge HD 11, was to not only do planetary, but to do those smaller galaxies and do them justice. And Stepping away from galaxies for a moment, one of my favorite things in the world is M57, which is the Ring Nebula, and
Yeah.
this guy will do a great job on that. So
Yeah.
that's
We just got to nail it. We just got to nail it down.
exactly.
That's what we got to get to. So you use a whole lot of accessories on your rigs, but you use one main component to control everything.
We do.
Now, what is, in case nobody knows what that main component is, what is that main component?
That main component for us is the ASI Air Pro or Plus. We've got both.
Yeah.
And it's the meat and potatoes of astrophotography or us. There's a million ways to get there. This is the one we've chosen, and it's based on a Raspberry Pi 4. And it's got the software necessary to do everything needed for astrophotography. So that's our go-to.
So we're just going to slide the computer some direction. I'm not sure which direction. That way we can get it out of field of view. I'm just going to slide back here. And yes, folks, don't try this at home. I am a paid professional. I do this for a living. I pick up heavy things all day long. So this scope originally, is 28 pounds. But obviously Donnie has this thing loaded to the gills. There goes Donna. Donna completely disappeared.
Bye, Donna.
So yes, Donna's still here. She's behind us. That's how big this thing is. This is 2,800 millimeters of focal length, correct?
Yes, on the dot.
On the dot. So I'm just going to take off this dust cap here. That, in case nobody knows, that's 11 inches, 279 millimeters aperture.
Right.
That's huge.
It
That's
is
a,
huge.
That's a big light bucket.
And I
Really
thank you to
is.
this day. We almost bought a 14-inch Edge HD, and I'm so happy we did now because this is a handful. This is really all that I care
14,
to
I
lift
think's
up.
40 pounds.
It is. Yeah.
And you were looking for a 14?
Yeah. With this thing
Ooh.
loaded as it is now, it's, I think, 33 pounds, and there's still a few more things we're going to put on here. So we're where we need to be. We're at the max of where we need to be.
Yeah. So we can move. We'll manipulate the scope. That way we can see Donna every once in a while.
I feel so sorry for her when she's putting this on the pier and I'm watching, but someone's got to photograph. So.
So up here, what kind of mount do you put this? I mean, this thing's heavy. It's 30 pounds.
It is. We've got the, as you know, the G11 Los Mandy
Yeah.
mount, and it is phenomenal for this. It's a good mount. It's rugged, and it will handle anything we throw at it. So that's where we're at with mounts.
Yeah, and that's what I like about the Losmandy G11 with the PMC. The payload's 60 pounds on paper, but again, I think if we took yours or we got mine and we just literally load it, I think it'll slew possibly 70 to 80 pounds.
I think so as well. And
No
the reason I
problem.
say that, we've got that 152 refractor,
Yeah,
Explore
That's
Scientific, and
huge.
it's huge with a drivetrain and everything on it. It's almost 6 feet long,
Yeah.
and it doesn't even grunt. It does a phenomenal
No, it
job.
just moves it like it's a paper.
And our error is within an arc second, so
Oh,
we're
yeah.
great.
So the beauty part, what do you plan on? Well, kind of explain what you got on. You said that you had the ASI Air on here,
Right.
but I see a lot more stuff on here.
Sure.
So we'll turn this just a little bit
Perfect.
right there. That way the camera can kind of see it and the audience can see it, and then we'll turn it back around the other way so we can see the back end as well. But go ahead. They can't see the tail rad, but they can see everything.
Okay.
there,
Yeah.
there.
The blue box you see in the front, most people who do a lot of astrophotography are at least familiar with them. And that's a Pegasus Micro that we use, and it does everything we need to do as far as supplying power.
Yeah.
We run 12 volts in that thing at 10 amps, and it will power everything we've got. And it, along with its dew controller that we control both dew things with, and it's got a sensor on it, and it will not let frost or dew form on these things. It's wonderful. So it does duality there, and it powers everything else we've got from the cameras, both the guide camera, which will go here, and the primary camera, as well as the ASI Air itself. And the mount. It does everything for us, so it's great.
Now, what guide scope is that? Is it a 60 mil or a 50 mil?
This one is a 60, and the reason for that is the sheer size and focal length of this telescope. It really calls for a minimum of 60.
Now, I've seen people put 80 millimeters, 102 millimeter refractors on these things. for guide
Absolutely.
scopes. And but granted, they don't move them after they do that because they're so heavy. That's 40, 50 pounds easy.
No doubt. We've got that 152 refractor, and on it is that 80 millimeter Explore Scientific for a guide scope, and those two combined, it's significantly heavy. So
Oh yeah.
you know, it's
That-
all you want.
That's just a peer-driven scope, and it doesn't move once
Exactly.
you get it in. So, do you use a guide camera, and which guide camera? I think this is a guide camera right here.
It is not
right?
currently attached, but that's correct. The guide camera that we've selected for this one is ASI Airs 174, and it's got I don't know if you guys are familiar with it or not. If you're not, check it out. It's got a huge sensor on it that's going to allow it to gather plenty of stars, lock onto those, and should track beautifully well with this combination. So you could probably go with something like a 290, but this 174 seems to fill the bill real well. So that's where we're at.
There's a couple of things it kind of piques my interest a little bit. Jim's Astro, the focal length on this scope is 2,800 millimeters of focal length. Why did you guys decide to go with a guide scope compared to an off-axis guider?
I'll be honest, we put an off-axis guider on this scope, and I have little patience, started having some issues with it, and I know you can work through them, and I know there's people that love the off-axis guider for obvious reasons. I just said nope, and put a guide scope on here, went with it, and haven't looked back, honestly.
Good. So yeah, I've kind of messed with off-axis guiders too. I'm the same boy. I can't do it with, like, I couldn't use it. Maybe it's my lack of experience with using them. I mean, there's obviously more experienced people with off-axis guiders than me. It's just easier when I can just throw a smaller telescope on there and I'm done.
Exactly.
Mess with it. Even if it's the ZWOs, the bigger one, their larger prism. Even with a full frame camera, I could not get the sensor to see that darn pickoff prism.
Right.
And it was a booger.
And no matter how good it is, it's still going to rob a little bit of light from you. And
Yeah.
we're light mongers. We try and get all of the light we can out of a scope. So have something that's not in the drivetrain versus something that is wonderful. And I realize that there's plenty of people out there that use these off-axis guiders and do a beautiful job with them. And they're a great piece of equipment. It's just not right for us. And who knows, we still have it and we may revisit it at some point.
When you get a little bit more under your belt
Sure.
and everything else. Now, what is the main issues you've had? I mean, because the back focus on this has got to be crazy huge.
It is. It is. In fact, textbook, it's 146.05 millimeters of back focus for this particular unit. And they mean it. It's got to be right there, or you start developing all sorts of issues and focus issues. And that's where we're at now is 146.05. And there's plenty of people out there that can help you through the back focus on this thing. And there's some great YouTube videos as well.
There are, but what I've noticed on some of the YouTube videos particularly, and the information, there's not a consistent number.
No, there's not. And people also differ in where they want to start that measurement, whether it be at the back of the scope or the back of the nut.
Or the back of the nut. It's one or the other.
Exactly.
And that's the thing is trying to differentiate where you start. I always start from the back of the cell.
And that's what we did as well, and that's where it is. So that's what you need.
We'll hopefully that we'll get to see some images. And if you need any help tonight, don't hesitate to call and just swing on over. It's just a 15-minute drive.
Beautiful.
So what's on the other end of this? I mean, obviously, it's another red piece of hardware. I'm just trying to be very careful with this, the $4,000 telescope. So I want to cradle it here.
Okay. This is one of Donna's cameras. You want to talk about it a little bit?
Well, it's a 533.
Where'd you go, Donna? I can't see you.
You can hear her though. So.
It's the ZWO 533.
Now, what's special about the 533, Donna, compared to? Is it because it's a square sensor, if I do recall,
It is
right?
a square sensor.
So it's a 1 inch by 1 inch perfect square. Would be great for galaxies, especially when you're trying to get in real nice and close, like maybe the Sombrero Galaxy,
No doubt.
because that thing is far away.
You know, one of the best things we like about this,
But
it's $1,000 instead of $2,000 for the 2600. Now we own both cameras, but obviously we've got several scopes, so we try and spread the love. So this is a good fit for this one now. Ultimately, I suspect we will have the 2600 on here, or maybe even go monochromatic down the road within a year or so.
they just came out with a 533 mono.
Yes, they did.
Just saying.
So that's
saying.
where we ultimately want to be. And
Yeah.
for those of you that know, we're going to take advantage of more pixels. Those pixels are laid out in a grid pattern,
Yeah.
and it's hit or miss. You've got red, green, green, blue, and with a monochromatic, every pixel that hits, or I'm sorry, every photon that hits is going to register. So the advantages of monochromatic versus color.
Oh yeah, tons more bigger advantages. Now, in case nobody knows, 2,800 millimeters of focal length at a f ratio of f10. That is, in my opinion, slow. It's not the slowest because there are refractors that are longer than this focal length, and they are f20 or below.
Exactly.
Or higher. Is there a way to make this faster?
Certainly. And one of our goals ultimately is to have the option of having a focal reducer on the scope. We've got it on our refractors as well. And right now, it's simply not available.
Now, I think you can make it even faster than
the Fast Star.
f6. So with this particular scope, and that's the great thing about the Edge HD versions, is they are all Fast Star compatible. And if you take a gander at that, hopefully the camera will pick up how big that mirror is in there. Maybe we'll wait and see. Well, you can't see it. It's okay. Just to see how much reflection you get back in there. But the front of it, we'll have to maybe pull it back just a little bit so the light will smack it.
You want it,
So we don't hit
and
Donna with the
tilt it a
camera.
little. There we go.
Well, wait a minute and see what the... So we're Fast Star compatible. And what that means is there's a company out there called Starzona. Starzona makes a Hyperstar where instead of having the camera in the back of the telescope, it's in the front. So now you're taking full advantage. We'll go ahead and just put that back down because she is a heavy girl. It takes full advantage of the 11-inch mirror, but you're getting it at f2
Exactly.
at 600 millimeters of focal length.
And for those of you in fear that having an obstruction up there, such as a camera in the front of the scope, it's really not a big deal, particularly with this much diameter. You've got 11-inch scope and you've got that thing up there. It's not going to make that big a difference.
No, and there's been people that make incredible images with a Hyperstar.
Absolutely.
It's just, in my opinion, it's a great multi-tool.
Oh, it is.
You can do multiple things. You can either throw straight in at f10. I think with the reducer, it brings it down to a focal ratio of f6-ish. Or you can go straight to f2.
Right.
So it's definitely a Leatherman of telescopes.
Good analogy. But yes.
So it definitely does a whole lot compared to what just a refractor could do. Because some refractors can go down to f2, but not like the 127 FCD100. Its native is 7.5. So with a 0.7 reducer, that brings it down to 5.5. 5, it's around that area. But to get something faster, it's hard. It really is. It requires a lot of engineering to get glass to go down that quickly.
Exactly.
Now all that means is when you're cutting down your focal length, you're cutting down your imaging time, right?
Oh, absolutely. And we've got, as an example, we've got a Comet Hunter that I'm sure many of you are familiar with, and it's an f6.
Yeah.
And it really makes a big difference, to have that f6 scope native.
Yeah.
And then if you put a reducer on it, you can really get down there with it as well.
So we have a question from Tariq Alamrani. I hope I did not butcher that. If I did, I do apologize. He's wanting to know about off-axis guiders.
Okay.
He's got an RC10, a Ritchie Gretchen, similar, but I believe they don't have a corrector in the front. So they'll just go straight in, secondary, and straight out, usually, kind of this assembly, but just without a corrector. He's wanting to know what off-axis guider he should use or what we would recommend.
Celestron, I assume that's a Celestron since it's an RC, which is probably the most common out there.
I don't think Celestron makes RCs.
Do they not?
No. Orion, Ioptron, Astrotech, they make RC, Astrophysics, of course, CDK, Plane Wave, all of them. I guess it would depend on what camera you use.
It would a lot. Now, you can also get adapters. You can get an adapter for everything now. So I know Celestron's got theirs. ZWO certainly makes one that a lot of people use for different scopes out there. and it is super popular. So I suspect that would work as well.
See, he mentions ONAG, which I've never heard of ONAGs. So I'll have to do some research on that. But the MOAG is the mother of all axis guiders. This thing's huge. It's literally a brick.
I confess not to seeing that before. That's
It is-
interesting.
it
I'm
is
gonna have to do
massive.
some research on that
So
as well.
I will, Don, if you wouldn't mind, I can look up a little bit of MOAG on this computer here, and then we can, who makes it? Oh, I can't remember who makes it. Oh, it's gonna bug me now. So what targets do you have in mind that you're wanting to shoot with this big behemoth?
Oh, definitely this time of year, both Galaxies M101 and M51, which are very popular. And we also, jumping ahead from the Galaxy thing, the M57, the Ring Nebula, is
Yeah.
a target we hit last year and got some beautiful imagery, but it's small. And our
Is it?
goal is to use this big beast here and really zoom in on that thing and get some quality images. So that's another goal of ours as well.
Now, do you plan on getting a reducer for this anytime soon?
We do. We've had trouble finding one, and we'll ultimately own one. Will we keep it on there all the time? Definitely not, because we're going to do planetary with this guy as well. So it's going to just add versatility to the scope. So that's where we're at with that.
So I'm assuming the ONAG is on and off axis guiders, I think. But here's the mother of all access guiders. I mean, the thing is a filter slider drawer. I think it's got a 12 millimeter prism. Oh, I can I? I keep forgetting that I can do that. Here, and here. Can everybody see my screen, Scott?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. So this is the Astrodon, mother of all axis guiders. I only know of one individual that has this particular thing, and he has it on his C14.
Really?
Yes.
I assume this is probably a 48 millimeter? Is it?
Let's see.
Does it say?
It does. It's.
I wouldn't think something of
mother-
that size would be a 42, but
Well, the good thing about this is you can put a whole bunch of off-axis guiders in there. It's furthermore,
Interesting.
it's a 36 by 36, so it's a good square. I'm looking for information. You can put a 50 by 50 millimeter filter in there, no problem, even with the pick-off prism in there.
excellent.
That's huge. That is a big, big sensor. But the thing is, you're paying for primo product. Like, this thing's probably got to be super, super expensive.
Astronomy is not an inexpensive hobby, unfortunately.
No, it's
but
not a
you get
cheap
what you
hobby
pay
at
for.
all. You do get what you pay for. So if I had to guess, I would probably go, I'm more familiar with the Celestrons and the ZWO OAG. So definitely I would make sure that more research is good research.
Oh, for sure.
And get more people's opinion on axis guider. Okay, so ONG is on axis guider. So I am not familiar with on axis guiding at all. Scott, do you have any insight on axis guiding? Because I have none.
Well, now I'm not sure why I have a lot of echo here, but let's try to fix this. Is that better? No.
So the
There we go. Okay,
got it? Good.
I think so. Anyways,
Okay, it sounds better.
on-axis guiding is something that, let me move this microphone away. On-axis guiding can be done with like a optical cube. And if you're not
Yeah.
familiar with an optical cube, it looks like two prisms cemented together.
Mhm.
And light can pass straight through the cube, okay, to a camera sensor. But because it's two prisms cemented together, part of that light can go off at a right angle to an auto guider, okay?
Mhm.
Or in the old days, a eyepiece where you'd watch the star, you know? And so that would be one way to do on-axis guiding. Another way is that you have a very small pickoff mirror, okay?
Mhm.
And you put it into the field, okay? the guider body, okay? And it makes a little bit of a shadow. It does erase some stars, so you have to be careful where you place it because it'll make a little shadow. But if it's just covering up a couple of stars, you know, most people don't notice that in the image, you know, and that's how you accomplish that. But if you want unobstructed full view, you would use something called an optical cube. Now, who makes one with an optical cube? I don't know, you know. There used to be a company, a guy named Dan Gordon made a on-axis guiding system with a little tiny pickoff mirror that he would slide in there with like a wire. And yeah.
That's
So-
crazy. So Tarak said that he has a 174 millimeters, is what you got.
Right.
I know ZWO just came out with a larger prism off-axis guider.
Yes, they did.
So I'm curious to know, what is the main imaging camera that you're going to use on your RC? That would be my question. Because with the larger on that specific one, it only mounts to certain cameras. If you don't have a certain camera, like the face plates on the 2600, they have
Exactly.
those pre-drilled holes.
Yes.
It'll literally just mate up right to it. But like the 533, you've got to get a specific plate or tilt adapter that will go right on it, and then you put the OAG, and then you can go
Absolutely.
from there. So it depends. I mean, if it were me, I would honestly just go with ZWO. I'm more familiar with it. If you're already using ZWO equipment, main camera is a ASI, 1600 in the QHY. I mean, 163M. I would honestly go with the ZWO.
That's exactly what I would do as well.
I had the larger one, and it was phenomenal. I don't prefer off-axis guiding. I'd rather have a guide scope. That way the main image is completely clear. I don't have a possibility of the prism falling down straight into the main imaging circle.
I don't even want to think about that.
Exactly.
Mess up a whole night.
Exactly. And I don't want that. I mean, if anything's got a component, that component will eventually fail.
I will say this, especially on these Edge HDs, the 9 1/4, the 11, and the 14, all basically are the same at the cell.
Yeah.
So if you want to future-proof these things and you want a full-frame camera at some point, this adapter that's back here on the back, this T adapter, which you can see here, this comes in 2 different sizes. You can get an M42, which is the 42 millimeter, or the 48. Save yourself some trouble. It's just a few dollars more, and go with the 48. And that way it is ready for not only like this 533, but you can do your full frame, which is what you're about to do as well. So
Eventually, yeah.
So let that cat out of the bag.
But
yeah, that's the way to go with this, guys. Go ahead and get your 48 millimeter on that, and you're future proof for a full frame camera down the road, or perhaps you've already got one.
Ooh, no. Let me make sure. There it goes. All right, so people want to see Donna, so I got to move the scope.
Just
People wanna
covered her
see
up.
Donna. Now, there was one question. Why on this giant thing that's astrophotography, why do you have a tail rat on here? What's the point?
We not only do, as I think Tyler had mentioned before, we do a lot of community outreach as well. So we don't just leave a camera on the sky. We also will snatch that camera off and put eyepieces on there, because one of our favorite things in the world is sharing the love of not only astrophotography, but visual astronomy as well with the community. And that's how we started, and that's our passion, was visual astronomy. And we love to get new people into the hobby. And, you know, like when I was in high school, we had a teacher who would dedicate his time with us here in Arkansas. And we formed an astronomy club, and we ended up with the old orange tube.
Oh, yeah, the old
Celestron.
orange tube.
And it was our escapism. And, I'm 61 years old, and I remember that to this day, and love the passion and the joy that we had with that, and love sharing that and bringing new people into the hobby as well.
Yeah, and that's what I love about you guys, is you preach, live, breathe, bleed outreach.
It's wonderful. It's our opportunity to give back to the community and grow people. There's a lot of people, as you know, we live in a rural area,
Yeah.
and a lot of people have not only had the opportunity to see in a large telescope, but any telescope ever.
Yeah.
So we've got a library out in our region, and we're going to try and get a telescope out there for those folks and educate them to use it as well.
Now, there's been another question is from Robbie Keene. I assume the scope is on a go-to mount, which he would be correct.
Certainly.
It is.
Certainly.
It's actually on a dedicated pier system.
It is.
It's not going to move at all because that pier is it's solid concrete. I've been there
It's
before.
4 feet in the ground, so it's there.
It's not going to move. There's actually, and here's Donna. Donna's back. Donna's all back. Tail rads, in my honest opinion, if you're going to use something that's got that much focal length, you can use it on an 80 millimeter. I've seen them on small, huge
Certainly.
scopes. Especially for astrophotography, if that thing is dialed in with that scope and it never comes off there, it's great for, instead of having a right angle finder, you have literally a bullseye on a target that you're trying to shoot, like
No
planets.
doubt. No doubt.
And that's the beauty part of it with the tail rad on something with that much magnification. And Captain 404, aren't you really undersampled with the 533?
Yes,
Yeah, they're extremely undersampled.
most definitely.
Now, as far as the imaging scale, I don't have the paperwork in front of me. It's on my actual work computer. But they are definitely undersampled.
Oh, absolutely.
And they're aware of it. It's just mainly there it's for testing mainly. That's the whole
exactly
reason.
why it's there. That's not our go-to for the system. It's actually the 2600.
Yes.
And ultimately, we're going to jump to a full frame camera to take advantage of this. And that's what I was speaking to earlier about having that 48 millimeter T adapter on there instead of starting off with a 42. You're foolproof. You're allowed to go straight into that full frame camera and take advantage of all of this.
Yeah, so if you get a full frame camera, you're going to go with the 6200, you're going to go with the 2400, you're going to go with QHY cameras, 600. I think there's QHY 600L or M, whichever one. Are you going to go mono with a full frame?
We are going to go mono ultimately, and we really shouldn't talk about price with my wife sitting here. She's my financial advisor.
But I'm safe over here. I'm on live TV.
No, she has been fully supportive of this hobby, and she is great, not only with the kids, but educating the general community. And she's learned a lot in a short period of time. And it's truly a passion that we share. So she's incredible.
But most Captain 404 is both, but most still use 3.76 micron pixels, or not micron pixels. Oh my Lord, my brain is not there today. Yes, megapixel, or not megapixel. The scientific word for pixels that dedicated cameras use, the UM.
Oh, micropixel.
Is it no?
It is micro. UM is micro.
My brain's not there. It's not there today. So he has so it's not the best optimal setup with the 533.
Definitely
He's
not.
aware. I'm aware. It's mainly he's trying to nail down the back focus. We've been struggling with that because like we said in the earlier of the episode, they're kind of in the ballpark of the number, but you got to play around with it. And with something of this caliber, any touch with the focuser, you're past anything.
Exactly.
It's even with, are you using, that's Scott's talking to Jeff Weiss. So yeah, you can literally roll past it really
very
quick.
easily. Even with this micro touch focuser that we've got on here, which we have the housing off of now, it is super sensitive.
Yeah. But from one thing that I've had success with is when messing with Schmidt Cassegrains, is I literally roll it all in one direction. Takes a while and just creep it back over.
Oh, for sure.
Creep it until I see something in the field of view. And again, I always stress, look at objects during the daytime.
Oh, for sure.
Because at 2,800 millimeters of focal length, you're trying to find a star.
Yeah,
Good luck.
impossible.
It's going to be a long night. It really will be a long night for sure.
We've had several Schmidt Cassegrain telescopes over the years, and we've never had an issue with back focus. Now with this guy, it's a handful, and I think we're there. We will know this evening, and we'll be up and running and ready to go. But I think we've got it.
SCTs and RASA question. What is the difference? Well, the main difference is I can use this for visual. RASA's it's
And a lot of people don't realize that.
Well,
that's right.
And with SCTs, this one, it's a Leatherman of telescopes. You can put a hyperstar, you can put a reducer on the back end of it. You can just put straight camera for planetary if you want to. But with a RASA, some people I've seen on the internet, yes, you can get f2, you can get wonderful images with it, but I've heard collimation can be sometimes a chore.
Absolutely.
You have to, if you're doing monochrome, you have to buy specific filters that only that can do the f2.
Yes.
The fast.
And keep in mind, guys, this particular Edge HD also has the capability of f2. You know, just get that fast star system on the front of this thing, and you're good to go.
Yeah, from Starzona, their
Yes.
hyperstar. I mean, I'm not saying that you need to stay away from RASAs or SCTs, but if it were for me, I'd want something that has a little bit more versatility. That way, if I want to do planetary or galaxies, or if I want to go straight into a nebulae, that's a light bucket. That's
Sure.
it.
There are plenty of people out there who do only astrophotography and don't care about visual. And for those people, the RASA is an excellent.
And that's the thing is that's another step is if they don't care about visual, oh, I'm just going to buy a dedicated astronomy equipment.
Certainly.
And that's what that's mainly designed for, is just straight dedicated equipment is the RASA for astrophotography. Some people just like the versatility of these, so maybe they want to do planetaries one night. Maybe there's going to be a nice conjunction somewhere and they want to be able to image it. Maybe they want to look at the solar cap on Mars. And with 2,800 millimeters of focal length, that'll find it.
Oh, it will.
Really, really quick.
In detail.
So I'm hoping that, I would also go with the Edge HD instead of a RASA. Beatrice gets it. I appreciate it, Beatrice. If I can explain it to where anybody can understand it, my job is successful. So are there any plans? You just going to try to do some more testing to try to make sure that you're in focus tonight with the big boy, or?
Yeah, that's our main thing is we've not been able to get it in focus. When we take it out during the day, we can see the mountains and the break line of the sky, but we can't see details on it.
Can't see details.
You can't see details. So hopefully now that we got the back focus fixed, that
Yeah, I'm hoping that's the issue
we'll be
too.
able to focus it.
And we know the drivetrain's probably fine because when we do visual with this, it's clear as a bell. It looks great.
So yeah,
So it's our guess is there when they say 146.05 millimeters, they probably mean it.
yeah.
So that's the reason we've had trouble achieving focus with this guy. So we will know this evening, and I think we're there. I know we're there. And the proof should be with this 533, and we'll switch it over to a full frame camera after that. So we'll be good to go.
You said it, not me.
I did slip.
He said it.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, if we go back to the camera. I think for full frame, whenever you decide to get one, I think a 2400 will be perfect, a good match. You're not going to be oversampled. You're not going to be undersampled. You're going to be right where you need to be because it's the bigger pixels.
Right.
It is one-shot color, which unfortunately they don't have a monochrome yet. I don't know if they'll come out with one, but if they do, I can't cross my fingers. My fingers are too big. But hopefully, maybe in the future, sorry, Donna, they will. But the other thing then you have to think about is filters for full frame. 2-inch will get you there, but it won't cover the whole sensor.
Right.
So you'll have to crop, or you'll have to buy dedicated, sorry, Donna, more expensive filters.
We probably will. I know cropping is much less expensive.
It is very less expensive.
I love the cropping.
So I hope that you guys can take away something from this episode, whether you want to buy a certain telescope that's a multi-Leatherman, or if you want to buy a simple refractor that literally makes things easy. Now with refractors, I literally have my 127 ready to go. I'm going to get it ready tonight. I'm probably going to image M81 and M82, the cigarette and the Bode's galaxy. Since the moon's finally gone, we finally have a clear sky. The tornado's out of the way. Thank the Lord.
Well, that and the snowstorm yesterday.
And the
so,
snowstorm, so what was it? We had snow yesterday, tornado the last day. It's been a Wizard of Oz
It
of
has
weather.
been quite the
Lot of
week.
rain.
A lot of
Yeah,
rain,
a
a
lot of
whole lot of
rain.
rain. But we needed the rain.
We
Yeah, we did.
I think we
Did.
needed the rain. Granted, I already had my yard already mulched. Then the tornado, then the rain, then the snow. It's like, oh, it's great, it's wonderful. But with the 127, it's also good for galaxies as well. The edges are a lot harder to find nowadays. And I
For
believe the wait list on those is 2024 or 2026 is the wait list on those now. And that's crazy.
golly.
Yeah.
I
But with
mean-
Explorer Scientific 127, we have them in the warehouse right now. So
And I'll be honest, folks, it's not because I'm sitting here. We own a large number of scopes, and with the exception of 2 of those scopes, they are all Explorer Scientific. And I don't say that because I'm paid to say that. I say that because they're workhorses. They're incredible scopes, and they do everything we need them to do. And they're great outreach scopes. They're tough as nails, and the kids bounce them around, and they take a licking and keep on ticking, to coin that phrase. But they're awesome. They really are. And our go-to scope is an Explorer Scientific FCD 100 and 102. And it's light, it's portable, it's convenient, it does great deep sky, and that's our go-to scope.
what scope do you not have that's Explorer Scientific yet?
The 165.
Me and Scott will talk later and work a deal out. Just kidding. Just kidding.
gosh.
Just kidding. Great. So let's see if there's any comments. Donnie, let's see, Captain 404. Donnie and Donna, what is the biggest innovation you have seen over the years in amateur astronomy?
The charge coupled devices, the CCD imagers, and the cameras in general, everything has came along so quickly that our ability to image in a relatively short period of time has been those cameras and the development of those sensors and the perfection of those sensors. And a big shout out to ZWO. They are our go-to camera. There's a lot of good cameras out there, but that's the one we go to. And I'll be honest with you, I may as well say it here. If you're using ASI Air as your controlling device, you're required to use their camera, at least right now. I hear that may change soon, but
Possibly. I'm not, I mean, it could be, who knows? I mean,
Yeah.
everything is always able to be manipulated some way. I mean, it's just coding.
right.
That's all it is.
It absolutely is.
It's simple.
And, I grew up in an era where you had to have a cold camera if you were going to spend any time doing astrophotography and didn't want to spend, hours upon
You had to
end
use
with it.
buttons. You had to look through an eyepiece,
it
hit
was- yeah.
buttons, and do all. I mean, Scott's told stories.
So
and
that's
it's crazy.
definitely,
I don't know how you guys did it. I don't know how y'all did it.
that's by far the biggest innovation that we've noted is the quality of the cameras available now. And literally anyone who has a passion for it can be an astrophotographer. They really can. There's nothing special about us or anyone else who does it. It takes time, it takes patience, and I guess most of all maybe money. But if you want to do astrophotography, you can do it relatively inexpensively.
You can, and most people have DSLRs nowadays.
Exactly.
And you can always use a DSLR to get started.
Yeah. I've seen people using cell phones. For
Yeah,
Pete's sake.
and you can do a cell phone. There's also, I got to get rid of this over here needs to go away. There we go. Do you think the next big thing in astronomy, cameras will be bigger pixels over more megapixels? I don't know. That's a tough one.
That is a tough one. That's looking in a crystal ball. I would like to think more pixels versus bigger pixels, probably.
The more pixels I have, the more data you can collect.
No doubt.
100%.
No doubt.
Robbie Keene, why are their triplets less subject to chromatic aberration than doublets are? What is the third lens actually doing?
That third lens is by far the most important thing. And if you'll look at the price, you'll see why. That is going to correct those images. A doublet literally is pulling the different wavelengths of light down to not a fine point, and they're hitting the sensor at different angles and in different places, so you get that halo effect. With that extra lens on that triplet, you're getting the opportunity to pull all those things down into one precise point, and you're getting a good true image out of the thing.
And you don't have to worry about color
true.
fringe.
Exactly.
A lot of companies sell ED doublets and call
Yep.
them APOs. Okay, and that is misleading.
It certainly is.
That is misleading. They are at best called semi-apos because they're almost correcting, the majority, the RGB colors that you're most concerned with, but a triplet or even better, a quad, okay, will give you real true apo performance. It's just the difference between a triplet airspace and a quad airspace is the prices, jump dramatically to a quad. So you can get almost perfect color correction with the airspace triplet.
But not 100%, right, Scott?
To be very honest with you guys, I've looked through almost every refractor I could get my hands on. This includes Takahashi's, Astrophysics. I've used fluorite apos before. I'm very sensitive to the color blue. I can see it very, very easily. Some people are not sensitive to the color blue, okay? So I always can detect some chromatic aberration in any refractor. Those that are not very sensitive to blue, I've seen them look through achromats that are not even just a regular Crown and Flynn achromat and say, wow, I've always heard that these kinds of telescopes have lots of chromatic aberration. And I just smile because I don't want to tell them that they're somewhat colorblind.
Which is probably true.
It's actually the truth. Maybe all three of you have used calcium solar telescopes before, right? You ever seen through them, and it's like a deep blue-violet color that you see of the sun? Okay. Well, when you look through those, you can see lighter features. Okay. If you have good blue sensitivity. All right. If you don't, you see no features. Okay. And so I've been out with a calcium K solar telescope before on outreach events. I did one at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory one time. We had over 1,000 people come and look through the telescope. There was about 30% of them that could not see the lighter features at all.
Wow.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it was quite a bit.
So we got a couple more questions, and we're unfortunately going to have to wrap it up because I know you guys want to go get set up on because you got your mount here, you got your telescope here. It's going to be kind of hard to get out there.
Put it all back together.
Got to put it all back together. So do you guys do solar?
We do not.
Why not?
It is one of our goals. Now, I said that. We do solar with just a standard solar filter. We do not have a solar scope. And that is one of our future goals, is to do some of that because we like to image so much. We want to do it daytime and night. So
I can let you borrow mine.
And we may take you up on that.
That's why I'm only 15 minutes away. So last question. And what is the significant difference between the image quality between an FCD1, FCD100, and of course there's FPL53? Scott may either say yes or no to my opinion. And granted, this is my opinion and you can take it for what it's worth. FCD1 is standard Essential Series glass. You get great color correction. Contrast is there. You can see it. The main difference of what you'll see is between FCD100, and I don't see a difference between FCD100 and FPL53. Maybe it's just my bad vision.
I don't either, but
I can't visually see a difference. Now, I'm not Ron Breacher. I'm not Don Struble or Chuck Ayub. I don't spend enough time imaging to notice all those contrasting details and to get all that color saturation at all. That's me. I don't see a difference, and that's why I always stick with the FCD 100s. What about you?
I stick with the FCD 100s because, first of all, I'm 61 years old, and like it or not, I'm sure vision has degraded some over the years.
Mm-hmm.
So the FCD 100, for me, approaches perfection. It reaches the limit of my abilities. So if you can't see it, it doesn't exist. You know what I mean? So, and I don't mean to take anything away from the FCD 100. It's an incredible scope. And for me, it's as good as I need, or as good as it gets, frankly. I've got doublets. I've got several triplets. I've got as you know, the Comet Hunter and the Schmidt-Cassegrains and things like this. But my go-to scope again is that FCD 100 because to me it's flawless.
Now there's a ton of other manufacturers that have FPL 53, which I'm not knocking FPL 53. It all comes to, I mean, glass is glass. Depends on what you put on the other end of that glass and what your processing ability is. That's going to actually bring out more of those features.
For sure.
Just
the
because you
old saying.
take pictures of it doesn't mean that you're actually going to bring out the full the full detail of everything.
And garbage in, garbage out too. If it's not great when you start, it's certainly, I mean, you can do some post-processing, but it's never going to be where you wanted it to be.
Exactly. Guys and ladies and Donna, we hope that you guys enjoyed today's show. I appreciate my guests, Donnie and Donna. We're going to get them out of here so they can get back into their car, back over to the house so they can load it or get everything going so they can get imaging. I'm probably going to expect a call to come help, which I'm gladly able to do. I just have to ask my wife first, but it's okay. So I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Please come back and see us again next Friday. Donnie and Donna and Tyler, hope you guys have clear skies. Hope you guys keep looking up.
Take care.